The brass generator key was still warm when Daniel Vale pulled it from Lena Calder's red lanyard and dropped it into her open toolbox. "Skip it. We need that hour." Around them, electricians froze with cables in their hands. The venue engineer looked at Lena. She opened her laminated checklist, but Daniel took it and held it up for the crew. "Transfer switch inspected," he read in a patient schoolteacher voice. "Fuel level verified. Ventilation louvers open. Are we testing a generator or launching a submarine?" A few people laughed. Daniel drew a black line through generator load test and handed the sheet back to her. Lena glanced at her sister Elise, who was watching the event clock above the loading dock. Lena said nothing. She had quietly kept the insurer's inspection appointment. 54 minutes later, with 1,800 guests waiting outside Calder Freight Depot, Ruth Nwosu arrived carrying a hard-sided inspection case. She looked at the untested generator, the floral crates blocking the transfer switch room, and Daniel's line across Lena's checklist. "I can't release coverage," she said. Lena felt Elise turn toward her. The question in her sister's face wasn't how they would save the event. It was why Lena had let Daniel be wrong. Beyond the loading doors, the depot was beautiful in a way that required hundreds of people to pretend it had happened effortlessly. Amber light climbed the old brick arches. A 40-foot LED wall showed a slow-motion ribbon of silver fluid folding into the client's new perfume bottle. White orchids rose from mirrored tables, each arrangement tall enough to make conversation inconvenient. The air smelled of hot dust, expensive flowers, and the rosemary glaze from a temporary kitchen, pulling more electricity than some small restaurants. Daniel smiled at Ruth, as if refusal were simply the first position in a negotiation. "I think we're speaking past each other." Ruth set her inspection case on Lena's toolbox. She wore a navy suit and flat shoes with reinforced toes. A small Calder House badge had been printed for her, though no one had expected her to attend the reception itself. "I was scheduled to witness a full transfer under event load at 5, she said. "We made an operational adjustment. You skipped the required test. We postponed it." "Until after the insured event begins?" Daniel's smile thinned by half a degree. It was one of his talents, making displeasure look like increased attention. "We're 50 minutes from the program. The installation was delayed by the client's scenic vendor, and we had to make a judgment call. The generator was serviced 11 days ago." "Servicing isn't a load test. The machine works." Ruth looked toward the transfer switch room. 3-wheeled crates of hydrangeas and orchids had been parked in front of the double doors. Their white petals trembled in the draft. "If it works, this should be easy," she said. "Move those crates and demonstrate it." The venue's chief engineer, Malik Henson, cleared his throat. "We'll have to shed load first." Daniel turned. "Why?" "Because they're running the kitchen's final lighting cues, the media wall, both freight elevators, and full air. We planned the test before catering went hot." "How long?" Malik looked at Lena. She knew the answer because she had written the sequence. 35 minutes to notify departments and shut down cleanly. 15 for the transfer and verification. Another 20 to restore and check equipment. Daniel checked the event clock as if time might change out of respect. "No, run it live." Malik's expression flattened. "I won't transfer this building without clearing the elevator cars and warning the kitchen. You told us the generator could carry the load." "I told Lena it could carry the planned emergency load, not every induction burner and decorative light in the building." Daniel turned back to Ruth. "Could you release provisionally while we conduct the test?" "No." "Could you issue a temporary exception?" "No." "What precisely happens if we open the doors?" Ruth clicked open her case and removed a tablet. "The event-specific binder remains unreleased. That puts you in breach of your venue agreement. Your general liability carrier may also reserve rights based on the known electrical condition." Daniel looked at Elise. As chief financial officer, Elise wore a black jumpsuit that made her look like she belonged on the client side of the velvet ropes. She and Lena shared the same dark eyes and square chin, but Elise could hold still under pressure. Lena had always moved, checking, straightening, carrying, finding. "Can we admit to the front courtyard?" Elise asked. Ruth considered it. "If the venue approves occupancy there and no event program begins." Malik nodded slowly. "Courtyard is on the house panel, separate service." Daniel touched 2 fingers to his mouth. He did that when he was rearranging people in his head. "Fine. We'll hold them outside with champagne. Lena, get guest services reconfigured. Elise, call the client. Malik, clear the room and prep the test. We can still open the main floor on time if everyone moves." Lena stared at him. He had just given her instructions from her own checklist. "Daniel," she said, "the courtyard bars are dressed, but they aren't stocked for 1,800 people. We planned arrival in 3 streams through the depot. So adjust. We need security at the service gate, more glassware, portable lighting along the west wall. Then get it." His tone was crisp, not loud. That was another talent. He could humiliate someone without giving them a dramatic moment to resist. Lena picked up the brass key and clipped it to her lanyard. Daniel's gaze dropped to it. "What are you doing?" "Getting the building ready for the test. I told you to handle guest services. The insurer needs the operations contact. She has me." Ruth closed her case. "My appointment is with Ms. Calder." For 1 beautiful second, silence belonged to Lena. Then a radio crackled on Malik's belt. "Engineering, we've got a fault on kitchen panel 3. Malik swore softly and strode toward the temporary kitchen. Lena followed him, already calling departments on her radio. "Production, this is operations. Hold all motion cues and confirm the elevators are empty. Catering, shut down induction in zones 2 and 3. AV, we're initiating a controlled power transfer. Save show files locally and confirm when your racks are protected." The responses came back layered with surprise and irritation. Daniel fell into step beside her. "You don't make that call without me." "I'm following the test sequence you canceled." "You concealed that the inspector was coming." "I sent you the calendar invitation. I printed the insurance condition in the operations book. I mentioned it at 9 this morning." "You said inspection, Lena. You didn't say one woman with a tablet could lock the doors." Ruth was close enough to hear. She gave no sign that she had. Lena stopped beside a pallet of unopened champagne. "I said coverage would not be released without the witness test." Daniel leaned closer. His voice softened. "This is what you do. You bury the important thing inside 40 ordinary things, then act shocked when people don't find it." Elise approached with her phone pressed against her chest. "The client wants options in 6 minutes," she said. "Their global president is 10 minutes away." Daniel pointed toward the courtyard. "We receive outside, pass champagne, move the welcome remarks onto the exterior platform, and call it an immersive arrival." "There is no exterior platform," Lena said. "There's a stone landing. It has 1 power outlet. The welcome remarks need a microphone, not Springsteen. Security has to preserve the fire lane, then position them around it. The city permit limits amplified sound in the courtyard." Daniel looked at Elise. "Do you see what I mean?" Elise's eyes flicked to Lena's checklist, still in her hand. "Can we do it safely for 20 minutes? If we use a battery speaker, keep the center aisle clear and cap the courtyard at 600. We rotate the rest through the covered east arcade." "Good," Elise said. "Do that." Lena waited for her sister to say anything else. She didn't. The courtyard solution lasted 11 minutes before the July heat turned it into a perfume-scented pressure cooker. Guests arrived in black cars faster than staff could pour drinks. The client's global president stepped onto the stone landing, while a guest services supervisor held a battery speaker at waist level. The microphone squealed when he began speaking. Daniel winced, then moved in with an easy laugh. "This building likes to make an entrance," he told the crowd, "so we're giving it a minute to compose itself." People laughed. Even Lena, standing near the service gate, understood why companies paid for Daniel. He could take an inconvenience and make it feel briefly intentional. Then an orchid crate lost a wheel. They were clearing the transfer switch doors when one caster folded under the weight. The crate pitched sideways, sending water across the concrete and pinning a florist's boot against the wall. Malik and Lena caught the metal frame before it went over completely. "You okay?" Lena asked. "My boot's stuck." The florist, a broad-shouldered woman named Tessa Wynn, spoke with surprising calm. Lena crouched in the water, released the brake on the surviving caster, and had 2 stagehands lift while Malik pulled the crate clear. Tessa flexed her ankle. "Bruised," she said. "Not broken. We need medical to look. I need 10 minutes and a new shoe. You need both." Tessa glanced at Daniel, who stood several yards away talking urgently to the client's producer. "He told us to stage those here," she said. "Daniel?" "Said your load-in map wasted premium floor space." Lena looked at the blocked doors, then at the dark water spreading toward a floor drain. Her original map had placed the floral crates in the north holding area, 30 yards away. Did he change it in writing? Tessa gave her a tired look. He pointed. We rolled. Lena took a photograph of the broken caster and the room doors, not because she knew what she would need later, because after the hotel blackout, she had trained herself to record what existed before someone confident explained it differently. Malik saw her do it. "Get the mop," he told one of his engineers. Then lower to Lena. "Get the sign-out book from my office." "The key log?" "Page for today." "Why?" His eyes moved to the brass key on her lanyard. "Because I handed that to you at 4:41. Your vice president took it 2 minutes later. If this gets ugly, I'm not having anybody say my team refused a scheduled test." It was the first kindness Lena had received all day, and it sounded almost hostile. She found the log on Malik's desk beneath a cooling cup of coffee. The entries were handwritten in blue grease pencil, his old habit because ink skipped on damp paper. At 4:41, beside GEN-1, he had written L. Calder. Witnessed load test. The return box was blank. Lena photographed the page and brought the book to Ruth, who read it without comment. By 6:20, every department had reported ready. The depot's show lighting went dark in sections until only work lights and exit signs remained. The perfume bottle vanished from the LED wall. Kitchen fans wound down, leaving the hall strangely hollow. Malik inserted the brass key and turned the generator control from auto to test. The engine coughed once, caught, and settled into a deep mechanical thrum that traveled through Lena's shoes. 30 seconds later, Malik initiated the transfer. The lights went out. Someone in the courtyard cheered, assuming it was part of the show. Emergency fixtures blinked on along the brick arches. The kitchen circuits held. The 2 designated elevators reported operational. Ruth watched the readings on Malik's meter, then followed him through the building while Lena checked off each verification point. At the media wall, one processor failed to return. The AV director stared at a blank section in the center of the display. It lost its configuration. "How long to reload?" Lena asked. "If the backup is clean, 20 minutes. Daniel appeared behind them. "You said the racks were protected." "They were. This processor's internal battery failed." "Can you bypass it?" The director shook his head. "The image will have a black rectangle through the bottle." Daniel turned to Lena. "This is why we needed the hour." She looked at him, unsure whether he genuinely believed the test had caused the failed battery or had merely revealed it. "This is why we test before guests enter." His face changed then, only for a moment. The warmth left it, along with the strain and charm, and she saw the cold arithmetic underneath. Elise stepped between them before either spoke again. "What's our opening time?" she asked. Ruth checked the transfer results. "I still have to inspect the emergency circuits after normal power is restored. The obstruction also needs to be documented as cleared." "How long?" "If everything passes, 45 minutes." Elise closed her eyes. From the courtyard came another burst of laughter, followed by the thin sound of Daniel's borrowed microphone squealing again. At 7:48, Ruth released the binder with 2 conditions attached. Guests entered the depot almost 3 hours after Daniel took the key from Lena's lanyard. The global livestream slot was gone. 2 contracted performers had left for another engagement. The client's president walked through the doors smiling for cameras and passed Lena without looking at her. Near midnight, after the last executive car pulled away, Lena found her laminated checklist on the production desk. Someone had circled Daniel's black line and written beneath it in the same marker, 1 hour. She slipped the sheet into her operations binder. Across the empty depot, Elise stood beside Daniel under the dimmed LED wall. He had one hand at the small of her back. They were speaking quietly, their heads close together, like a married couple sharing bad news at the end of a long day. Then Elise looked across the room at Lena. "Don't leave yet," she called. "We need to agree on what happened." The 3 of them met in the green room because every proper meeting room still held perfume samples, garment racks, or half-eaten catering trays. Someone had left a white robe draped over the back of Daniel's chair. He lifted it with 2 fingers and placed it on a carton before sitting. Elise closed the door. "What happened," she said, "is that we had competing priorities and failed to communicate the insurance requirement clearly." Lena remained standing. Her knees had stiffened from crouching beside cases and crawling under tables all evening. The requirement was clear. "I'm trying to keep this constructive." "So am I." Daniel loosened his tie. "At 9 this morning, you said an insurance inspection was scheduled. That phrase covers everything from checking extinguishers to counting exit signs. I said Ruth had to witness the generator load test before she could release event coverage. Not to me. You were at the operations meeting. I was in and out of that meeting because the client's scenic director had shipped the wrong floor panels." Elise sat opposite him. "Lena, did you speak directly to Daniel after the test was removed from the schedule?" "He removed it in front of me." "That isn't what I asked." Lena looked from her sister to Daniel. They had arranged themselves on the same side of the narrow table without seeming to notice. "I told him coverage wouldn't be released without it." Daniel folded his hands. "You said that after I crossed it off." "Yes. And then?" "And then you mocked my checklist in front of the venue team." Elise rubbed the bridge of her nose. "Can we leave tone out of this?" "No. His tone is why everyone thought the requirement was optional." Daniel leaned back. "My tone? You made the test sound ridiculous. I made a joke because we were 6 hours behind. You took the generator key and handed it back. At 7:20, after the insurer refused coverage, I handed it to Malik." Lena reached into her binder and removed the checklist. The paper was soft at the folds now, smeared with a faint gray crescent from the wet floor. "You wrote through the test." Daniel looked at his line as if someone else had drawn it. "I made a scheduling decision based on what I knew. The client lost its live stream because of that decision. The client lost its live stream because a processor battery failed during an unnecessary power cycle. That battery would have failed whenever the building transferred. It might have held through the event. It might have failed during an emergency." Daniel smiled without humor. "And there it is. The catastrophe you're always the only one brave enough to imagine." Elise said his name softly. He kept his eyes on Lena. "We all know where this comes from. You had a terrible experience at the showroom, and now every unlikely risk feels inevitable to you." Lena's fingers tightened on the checklist. At the Shoreham, a senior operations manager had told her the backup transfer had been tested. She had accepted the answer because questioning him in front of the hotel director would have looked insubordinate. 5 hours later, the ballroom went black. A guest fell on the service stairs during the evacuation and fractured his hip. The investigation found a seized transfer mechanism and 3 missed inspections. It also found Lena had no authority over engineering. Her name was cleared in 11 pages of careful language that did nothing to stop her from waking at the smallest electrical hum. "You hired me knowing that experience," she said. "We hired you because you're good," Elise said. Daniel nodded. "You are. But being good doesn't mean every concern has equal weight. The insurer gave this one all the weight. We're talking in circles." Elise placed both palms on the table. The client wants a preliminary incident statement by 10 tomorrow. Our lender will probably ask for one. We need to say the coverage release was delayed by a breakdown in internal communication and an equipment fault discovered during testing. The equipment fault didn't delay the coverage release. It delayed the media wall. It contributed to the late opening. After Daniel canceled the test, Elise's mouth tightened. Do you want me to put my husband's name in the first paragraph? I want you to put the vice president's decision in it. For a few seconds, all Lena could hear was an ice machine cycling in the catering room next door. Daniel stood and picked up the white robe again. He folded it once, surprisingly neatly. I'll draft something, he said. We can review it in the morning when we're less tired. At the door, he paused beside Lena. You could have called Ruth and moved the appointment. The policy required 24 hours notice. You still could have called. And said what? That we needed flexibility. She would have told us the same thing sooner. Exactly. He walked out. Elise waited until his footsteps faded. You should have warned me privately, she said. I did. You were copied on the same messages. That isn't private. You wanted me to tell you Daniel was about to make a mistake so you could stop him without anyone seeing. I wanted you to give me a chance to solve it. You were standing there. Elise's expression shifted, not quite anger and not quite hurt. You enjoyed being right. Lena stared at her. Maybe not at first, Elise said. But when Ruth arrived, you stood there with that binder like you'd been waiting for the room to learn a lesson. I was waiting for an inspection. You could have said, everyone stop, this will cancel our coverage. You could have made a scene. Daniel had just turned me into a joke in front of 20 people. So you let 1,800 people wait outside? Lena slid the checklist back into the binder. No, Daniel did. She left before Elise could answer. The preliminary report arrived at 8:12 the next morning. Daniel had written that an operations team member did not escalate the fixed nature of an inspection appointment after leadership adjusted the testing schedule. He noted that the same team member proceeded independently rather than seeking a coordinated solution. Lena read it twice at her kitchen counter where a mug of coffee went cold beside her laptop. Her surname appeared nowhere. Neither did Daniel's. She opened a reply, attached Ruth's calendar confirmation, the 6-week event schedule, and the page from the operations book containing the insurance condition. Then she stopped. The phrase operations team member was bait. If she answered angrily, she became the anxious subordinate Daniel had described. If she stayed quiet, his version hardened. She deleted 3 paragraphs and wrote 4 sentences. The load test was a documented condition of event-specific coverage. At 4:43 p.m., Daniel Vale directed the venue team to skip the scheduled test. I stated that coverage would not be released without it. The insurer arrived at the confirmed appointment and declined release until the test and inspection were completed. She copied Malik and Ruth because both were named as witnesses in the report. Ruth replied first, accurate. Malik followed 2 minutes later, confirmed. Key log available. Daniel did not answer. By noon, the report had been replaced with a shorter version describing a leadership decision to defer testing. That was the first small thing Lena won, though no one acknowledged it. The second came when Camille Ross, the client's executive producer, called her directly. I'm not calling to yell, Camille said. I already did that with your brother-in-law. He's my sister's husband. That is the most exhausting possible version of what I just said. Despite herself, Lena laughed. Camille continued, I need to know whether your team could have discovered the processor issue without delaying doors. If we'd tested at 5, yes, we'd time to reload the configuration before the scheduled opening. And he canceled that test for installation time? Yes. What was installed during that hour? Lena looked at her notes. The mirrored scent tunnel was realigned. The entry lighting was refocused. We finished stocking the west bar. The scent tunnel. It was 7 inches off center. Camille was quiet for a moment. Our creative director noticed that. I'm sure he did. He also left before the speeches. Lena waited. Send me the final technical timeline, Camille said. Only the timeline. Let your executives handle the poetry. On Monday, Daniel called Lena into his office. He had replaced 2 framed hotel awards with a wall-sized process map covered in bright magnetic squares. He offered her coffee from the expensive machine Elise had bought him, then made his own without waiting for her answer. I read the timeline you sent Camille. She asked for it. It was accurate. That's generally what I aim for. He leaned against the cabinet. You think I'm trying to make you the villain. I think you tried. It didn't hold. To her surprise, he laughed. Fair. He handed her a single sheet of paper. At the top was a proposed title, Senior Manager Event Systems. Lena read the salary figure twice. It was more than she had expected to make for another 2 years. You're offering me a promotion. I'm correcting an underuse of talent. What changed between Midnight Friday and now? Friday proved you can hold your nerve when senior leadership disagrees. It also proved senior leadership doesn't like it. That depends on how you do it. At the bottom of the page, beneath the compensation details, was a paragraph assigning the senior manager joint accountability for risk communication and operational escalation. Attached behind it was the revised incident statement. Daniel tapped the signature line. We accept shared responsibility, show the insurer we've corrected the communication gap, and move forward. You get the title you've earned. I get a risk professional who doesn't report through 3 layers of event producers. Would I have stop work authority? You'd have escalation authority. That means I can tell you something is unsafe. Yes, and you can overrule me. Every company has a chain of command. Who documents the override? He took a drink of coffee. Lena, the goal is not to design a system where you can trap executives in writing. The goal is to design one where executives think before overriding safety conditions. His patience cooled. Do you want the job? I want the authority that should go with it. I'm offering you a substantial raise and a direct reporting line. To you, that's how organizational charts work. She placed the promotion sheet on his desk. I won't sign the incident statement. Then take the weekend. It's Monday. His mouth twitched. Take another one. She left the paper where it was. By Wednesday, Lena was removed from the aviation summit at the Harbor Exchange. Daniel said the client needed a less cautious operating style. On Thursday, he reassigned the Autumn Spirits launch to another manager. On Friday, facilities delivered 4 plastic shelving units to a windowless records room and told Lena Daniel wanted the event inventory reconciled before renewal season. The room smelled like cardboard and carpet glue. It held 3 years of damaged linens, obsolete radio chargers, mismatched stanchion ropes, and boxes labeled with words like, maybe candles. Her new desk faced a wall. Elise came down shortly before lunch, carrying 2 sandwiches. Turkey or tuna? Which one comes with an apology? Turkey, but it's mostly lettuce. Lena took it anyway. Elise sat on a carton of gray napkins. Daniel says you refused the event systems position. Daniel offered me a title in exchange for signing his version of Friday. He says the statement was negotiated. With himself? You really can't help it, can you? Help what? Making every disagreement sound ridiculous. Lena unwrapped the sandwich. It was, in fact, mostly lettuce. Elise looked around the room. I didn't approve this reassignment. You don't approve operations assignments. I can change it. Will you? The question sat between them. Elise picked at the edge of her wrapper. Mom asked whether you're coming Sunday. I came last Sunday. You and Daniel didn't. We were dealing with the client. So was I. Daniel needed me. And now? Now I'm here. Lena nodded toward the shelves. In inventory. Elise stood. I'm trying to keep the company from losing its expansion financing. I know. The lender sees an insurance incident 3 weeks before review. The client is withholding final payment. We're going to give them a 6-figure credit. I know that too. You keep acting like the cleanest truth is free. No, I'm the one paying for it. Elise left her untouched tuna sandwich on the carton. The following week, Daniel announced Calder Flow, a digital operations platform that would replace paper checklists across every event. He introduced it at the staff meeting with a polished demonstration and one of his easy jokes about freeing the company from the tyranny of laminated paper. Lena sat in the back and took notes. Calder Flow allowed executives to approve schedule changes from their phones. It showed current tasks in clean green blocks and delayed items in amber. What it did not show was the original value after an executive changed it. It also allowed one person to create, approve, and close an exception. When Lena asked about the audit history, Daniel clicked to the next slide. Version 2, he said, before or after Insurer renewal. A few heads turned. Daniel smiled. Thank you, Lena. We'll put it on the development list. 2 days later, the platform marked a refrigeration exception green for an upcoming culinary awards event. Lena would have missed it if a warehouse coordinator hadn't carried in 6 cracked acrylic menu holders and asked which inventory code meant ruined. She opened the event record. Temporary refrigeration would share service with the demonstration kitchens. The electrical contractor had flagged the combined load in amber. Daniel had changed the status to accepted and moved the backup refrigerated truck from Thursday morning to Friday afternoon, saving 14 hours of rental. Doors opened Friday at 6. The food arrived Thursday at 9. Lena printed the exception before the system could become cleaner than the truth. She called the electrical contractor first. Tell me the refrigeration load is lower than the number in Calder Flow. Wish I could, said Priya Desai. 6 mobile coolers at 48 amps each, plus 2 freezer cabinets. The kitchen vendor added another combi oven yesterday. Did you send a revision? Tuesday at 3:14. Your platform marked it reviewed. By whom? Vale. Lena looked at the green block on her screen. Can the service carry both? Until it can't. If the demonstration kitchens run every appliance during rehearsal, you'll be over. Best case, a breaker trips. Worst case, you keep resetting it until something gets hot. What's the safe option? Dedicated generator for refrigeration or the refrigerated truck on site before product arrives. Can you hold a generator? Until 4 today. Lena checked the event's approval list. Daniel owned the budget. The culinary producer owned product safety. Facilities owned the loading dock where the truck would have to sit. She wrote one email to all 3. The current plan places temporary refrigeration and demonstration kitchens above the contractor's rated service. Product arrives Thursday at 9 a.m. Backup refrigeration is scheduled Friday at 2 p.m. A dedicated generator remains available until 4 p.m. today. Unless operations receives a safe alternative by 3:30, the product acceptance window should be suspended. She attached Priya's revision and the printed Calder Flow exception. Then she waited. At 2:17, Daniel appeared in the inventory room doorway. You suspended food delivery? I said it should be suspended if there's no safe refrigeration. You're not assigned to this event. I'm assigned to inventory. 6 cracked menu holders came back against the event code, so I opened the record. You went looking. For where to charge 6 menu holders? For a problem. The problem was already there. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. The room became smaller. You copied the culinary producer. She owns product safety. You told her we can't receive food. I told her the conditions under which we can. She called me in a panic from a tasting. That sounds inconvenient. His jaw flexed. You keep using procedure as a weapon. I used a deadline because the generator hold expires at 4. We are not renting another generator. Then move the truck. The truck blocks vendor access. Move product arrival. The chefs are flying in for prep. Reduce kitchen load. Do you hear yourself? Every answer creates 3 new problems. That's operations. That's fear. Lena turned the printed exception toward him. Priya warned you Tuesday. I accepted the load based on the original equipment plan. Then the combi oven was added. I wasn't notified. It's in the revision you reviewed. I review hundreds of updates. You changed the status to accepted. because your old paper system trained people to treat every amber flag like a fire alarm. My old paper system? You know what I mean. Lena did. He had begun calling the company's previous processes hers, so that improving them meant defeating her. Daniel picked up the printout. At the bottom, the platform had included a small gray line Lena had not noticed on screen. Exception accepted by D. Vale, 3:22 p.m. Tuesday. His thumb covered it. Withdraw the email, he said. No, I'm directing you to withdraw it. I can send a correction when you give me a safe plan. Lena, 3:29. He looked at the wall clock, then took out his phone. At 3:41, Priya emailed confirmation that Calder House had booked the dedicated generator. At 3:44, Daniel replied to the full group. Resolved. I identified the service conflict during final leadership review and secured supplemental power. Product acceptance will proceed as scheduled. Lena read the sentence until its neatness became almost funny. Priya sent her a private message. Leadership review. Cute. Lena typed back, safe is safe. It was the third small thing she won, and the first one Daniel stole before it had finished happening. He presented the save at Friday's executive meeting. Lena was not invited, but Elise came to the inventory room afterward. She didn't bring lunch this time. Did Daniel identify the refrigeration conflict? He approved it. That isn't what I asked. He identified it when I gave him 31 minutes before the generator hold expired. Elise folded her arms. He said the platform surfaced it. The warehouse surfaced it. Calder flow made it green. Show me. Lena opened the record. The current view listed the dedicated generator and displayed every status as compliant. The old exception is gone. Then how do I know what it said? Lena removed the printed page from her binder. Elise read it. Her eyes stopped on the gray approval line. He said the equipment changed after his approval. The revision was uploaded 8 minutes before he accepted it. You can tell that. Priya's email is time-stamped. So is the platform. Elise read both documents, then sat at the edge of Lena's desk. For once, she didn't explain Daniel. Why didn't you call me? She asked. Would you have booked the generator? Yes. Then you would have solved it privately and Daniel would have said the system worked. Elise flinched as if Lena had repeated a confidence. That's what you wanted at the depot, Lena said. A chance to fix his decision before anyone saw it. I wanted to protect the company. You keep saying that like Daniel and the company are the same thing. They're not. Then stop making me prove it. Elise left with the printout. Lena expected Daniel within the hour, but he never came. That evening, their mother called. I have enough lemon chicken for 6 people, Marion Calder said, and apparently only 3 people who intend to eat. You always make enough for 6. I respect leftovers. Your sister says she's working. She probably is. And Daniel? He probably is too. You sound like a hostage reading a statement. Lena smiled despite herself. I'll come Sunday. Good. Bring back my glass dish. What glass dish? The one you took in March. I didn't take a dish in March. Then your sister did. Bring yourself. On Sunday, Elise arrived alone 20 minutes after dinner started. She set a bottle of wine beside Marion's sink and kissed their mother's cheek. Daniel's with the lender team, she said. Marion served her chicken without asking another question. She had retired from Calder House 4 years earlier, but still read the trade newsletters and remembered every invoice dispute the company had ever survived. A scar curved along her wrist from recent tendon surgery, pale against her skin as she carved her food. How bad is renewal? She asked. Elise glanced at Lena. Mom, you both make the face your father used to make before telling me a client was reconsidering scope. How bad? We'll retain coverage, Elise said. The question is price and conditions. Because of the depot? Yes. Marion chewed slowly. Who canceled the test? The room tightened. Elise set down her fork. Daniel made the schedule adjustment. And Lena? Kept the inspection appointment. Good. Elise gave a short, disbelieving laugh. It delayed doors by almost 3 hours. The skip test delayed doors. Could we please not conduct an insurance review over chicken? Marion looked at Lena. Were you clear that coverage depended on it? Yes. Then I'm done. You're done because you heard her answer, Elise said. I'm done because I asked the relevant question. You left us a company where every decision lived in somebody's head. Daniel is trying to build systems so we can grow beyond that. Then his system should remember what happened. Lena looked down at her plate. Elise did not. The platform is being updated, she said. To restore audit history? Lena asked. To preserve it going forward. That's not the same thing. I know. The admission was quiet enough that Marion pretended to be occupied with the serving spoon. After dinner, while their mother wrapped leftovers, Elise stood with Lena on the back steps. Heat lightning flickered far beyond the rooftops. I moved Calder flow approvals under finance review, she said. Any safety exception now needs 2 people. Does Daniel know? He knows. How did that go? He said I was rewarding you for undermining him. Are you? I'm protecting the company. This time, Lena let the phrase pass. Elise stared out at the dark yard. He's good at his job. I know. He brought in the Ashdown account. He negotiated the harbor exchange rates. He found the tax credit that paid for half our warehouse upgrade. I know that too. He thinks if he slows down for every person who says wait, he'll become my father. Their father had been generous, imaginative, and incapable of ending a bad idea before it consumed a budget. Marion had loved him and spent 27 years converting his promises into payable invoices. Daniel isn't Dad, Lena said. No, Daniel finishes things. Even when he should stop. Elise rubbed her bare ring finger, then seemed to notice what she was doing and folded her arms. He says you've wanted him gone since I brought him in. I wanted a vice president who knew the difference between urgency and authority. That sounds rehearsed. I've had a lot of inventory time. Elise almost smiled. The insurer's renewal notice arrived Tuesday. The proposed premium was nearly double. Coverage would continue for 60 days while Calder House completed a formal risk review, submitted corrective procedures, and demonstrated that operational safeguards could not be overridden by a single executive. Daniel called an all-hands meeting and described the increase as an opening position. He assigned a team to prepare evidence of Calder House's new controls. Lena was assigned to assemble archived inspection records, but excluded from the insurer presentation. For 2 weeks, she scanned test logs, permits, service certificates, and safety plans. She found coffee rings, missing initials, invoices stapled backward, and proof that the company had been imperfect in ordinary, survivable ways for years. Malik began bringing her the depot's current engineering logs without being asked. Ruth will want a chain, he said. Not a pretty policy written last week. Tessa sent the florists revised staging maps and an email confirming Daniel had directed her crew to block the transfer room. Priya provided the refrigeration correspondence. Camille sent a terse client assessment stating that Lena's original test schedule would have protected the live stream window. The evidence did not show a company destroyed by one man. It showed a company whose people usually caught one another before mistakes hardened, and a leader who treated being caught as disloyalty. Daniel discovered the file because he still had access to the shared renewal drive. He came to the inventory room carrying Lena's proposed promotion sheet. The signature line remained blank. You've built a case against me. I built the renewal record. You contacted the client. Camille contacted me first. You solicited statements from vendors. I requested operational documentation. Stop talking like a deposition. Then stop questioning me like one. He laid the promotion sheet on her desk. I can still fix this. For who? For both of us. Ruth needs confidence that leadership understands the failure. She doesn't need a family execution. What do you want me to say? That the appointment's fixed nature wasn't understood until Ruth arrived, that once it was understood, we cooperated and completed the test. You understood before she arrived. I understood your interpretation. It wasn't my interpretation. Daniel pulled out the chair and sat, bringing himself level with her. If the premium stays where it is, the lender cuts the expansion facility. We close 2 planned offices before they open. People who had nothing to do with this lose opportunities, maybe jobs. Lena hated that he was right about the shape of the damage, even if he was wrong about its cause. He pushed the promotion sheet toward her. Senior manager, direct access to finance, joint authority over risk systems, everything you said you wanted. Reporting to you? For now. And the incident statement? Shared responsibility. She looked at the salary again, then at the wall she had faced for weeks. When is the review? Thursday at 9. That wasn't my question. Daniel's face hardened. You're already on the witness list, Lena said. He stood. At the door, he turned back. Elise will be in that room. I know. You may win every factual point and still lose your sister. After he left, Lena opened her operations binder. The depot checklist rested behind the first divider, Daniel's black line still cutting through the test. She set it beside the key log copy, then called Malik. I need the brass generator key on Thursday. He was silent for a beat. As evidence? As the thing everyone kept pretending was abstract. I'll sign it out to you at 8:30. Lena picked up her blue grease pencil and wrote the time on the review agenda. Her hand shook only once. At 8:30 Thursday morning, Malik met Lena at the depot's engineering office. He placed the brass key on the counter between them and opened the sign-out book. Purpose? He asked. Insurance review. That sounds boring. It won't be. That sounds worse. He wrote the date in blue grease pencil and turned the book around. Lena signed beneath it. Malik watched her clip the key to the red lanyard. You want me there? He asked. Ruth has your statement. That isn't what I asked. Lena looked at him. Come if you're comfortable answering questions. I've been uncomfortable since your brother-in-law moved a floral forest in front of my transfer room. He's my sister's husband. Still correcting people on that, apparently. The review took place in Calder House's largest conference room, where the windows looked down on the warehouse loading bays. Ruth sat at one end beside the company's insurance broker, a risk engineer from the carrier joined by video, his face filling a screen behind her. Daniel and Elise sat together, though several inches of polished table showed between their chairs. Lena took the seat across from them. Daniel's process map had been condensed into a 12-page presentation. It described the depot delay, the launch of Calder flow, the new dual approval rule, and the refrigeration generator as evidence that the system now identified risks before events. Ruth read silently while Daniel spoke. We've treated the incident as a catalyst, he said. The main issue was that the significance of the inspection appointment wasn't escalated clearly after the schedule changed. We've removed that ambiguity. Ruth turned a page. Who changed the schedule? I did. And who knew coverage depended on the test? The operations team understood there was an inspection condition. What wasn't understood across leadership was that the carrier would decline any provisional release if we postponed. Lena saw Elise's eyes move toward him. Ruth asked, Did Miss Calder tell you coverage would not be released? Daniel rested his forearms on the table. She raised that concern, yes. In the moment, I understood it as her risk assessment rather than a direct statement from the carrier. Why? We were dealing with dozens of last-minute requirements. Lena is thorough, which is one of her strengths, but her communication style can make it difficult to distinguish a critical condition from a preferred safeguard. The words were polished enough to sound almost generous. Ruth looked at Lena. What did you say? I said, coverage won't be released without the witness test. When? After Daniel told us to skip it. Did you say anything before that? At the 9 o'clock operations meeting, I said you were arriving at 5 to witness the generator load test before releasing the binder. The condition was also in the schedule, operations book, and calendar invitation. Daniel's fingertips tapped once against the table. The risk engineer's voice came from the speakers. Was the test removed through the company's formal change process? We were using paper approvals, Daniel said. That's one reason we introduced Calder Flow. Lena opened her binder. The formal change process was this checklist. She placed the laminated sheet on the table, the gray watermark curved along one corner. Daniel's black line still crossed generator load test, and beneath it, in larger letters, someone had written 1 hour. Ruth pulled it closer. Who wrote through the test? I did, Daniel said. As I've acknowledged, I made the scheduling decision. And the words beneath it? I don't know. Neither did Lena. She had wondered whether it was a stagehand, an electrician, or someone from the client team. Ruth touched the line with one finger. What exactly did you say when you canceled it? Daniel glanced at Lena. We need to keep this in context. I'm asking for the words. I said we needed the hour. Lena unclipped the brass key and set it beside the checklist. It made a small, dense sound against the wood. He took that from my lanyard and said, "Skip it, we need that hour." Then he read items from my checklist in front of the venue team and asked if we were launching a submarine. The broker stopped writing. Daniel's face remained composed, but color moved up his neck. That joke was ill-advised, he said. It was also irrelevant to whether the company has corrected the process. It's relevant to whether people felt authorized to treat the test as optional, Lena said. You're interpreting a moment of levity as an operational directive. Crossing out the test was the directive. Mocking it made sure everyone understood whose judgment mattered. Elise looked at the checklist. Did you take the key? Daniel turned toward her. For less than a minute. Why? Because we were moving on. Ruth opened the copy of Malik's log. The key was signed out to Ms. Calder at 4:41 for a witnessed load test. When was it returned to engineering? Malik answered from the chair beside Lena. After 7. I gave it back as soon as we started corrective action, Daniel said. You gave it back after the carrier representative arrived, Malik said. Before that, you put it in Lena's toolbox and directed my team to continue event preparation. Daniel's chair creaked as he shifted. Ruth moved to the next document. The transfer switch room was also blocked. The floral vendor staged equipment incorrectly, Daniel said. Lena placed Tessa's revised map beside the key log. The vendor staged according to Daniel's verbal direction. He moved the holding area from the north corridor to increase usable event space. It was a standard floor optimization. It blocked life safety equipment, Malik said. We've corrected staging approval in the new process. Ruth turned to the section on Calder Flow. Who can modify an exception after it's approved? Currently, any safety exception requires operations and finance, Elise said. One person cannot approve and close the same exception. When did you make that change? After the culinary event. Daniel looked down at his presentation. The risk engineer asked, what happened at the culinary event? A load conflict was caught during final review, Daniel said. Lena took out Priya's printed exception. The electrical contractor flagged the conflict Tuesday. Daniel accepted it 8 minutes after the revised equipment plan was uploaded. Calder Flow marked it green and removed the earlier condition from the active view. I found it Thursday because damaged inventory came back under the event code. The conflict was resolved, Daniel said. After Lena gave us a written deadline, Elise said. The room changed so quietly Lena felt it before she understood it. Daniel turned to his wife. That's not how we discussed presenting it. You said the platform surfaced the issue. It did. The platform hid the issue. It created visibility around the event record. After you approved it. Elise. She opened the copy Lena had given her and slid it toward Ruth. The audit trail wasn't active in the user view, Elise said. This printout and the contractor's timestamp established the sequence. We've preserved version history since then and restricted approvals. Daniel stared at her. The several inches between their chairs now looked deliberate. Ruth asked him, Did you represent the correction as your own discovery? This review is about insurability, not internal credit. It's about whether your controls function when someone resists inconvenient information. Daniel's restraint finally cracked. We put on complex events under impossible time pressure. Every person at this table benefits when I turn hesitation into a decision. The depot client was 6 hours behind because their own vendors failed. I recovered almost all of it. One test was moved, not eliminated, and the company is being treated as if I lit the building on fire. You moved a condition of coverage, Ruth said. I made one bad call. You made another when the refrigeration warning appeared. I corrected it. After, miss. Calder documented it to the responsible parties. Daniel looked at Lena. You wanted this room, he said. You wanted every person here to watch me be wrong. Lena could feel the old impulse to soften the truth before Elise had to hear it. She had done that for years, turned Daniel's dismissals into misunderstandings, Elise's silences into stress, her own anger into something she could manage alone. I wanted you to stop making other people carry the risk of you being right, she said. Daniel pushed back from the table. There it is. No, Elise said. Sit down. He looked at her as if she had spoken in a language he understood but had never heard from her. She held his gaze. Sit down, Daniel. He did. The review continued for another hour. They discussed alarm maintenance, temporary power sign-offs, evacuation staffing, and who could authorize an event to proceed. The documents were ordinary. That made them harder to dismiss. A key log, a vendor map, an email timestamp, a checklist wrinkled by water. At the end, Ruth closed the binder. The carrier will renew with conditions, she said. The premium increase will be 38%, subject to 6 months of documented compliance. The deductible for electrical interruption will increase. Temporary power plans must be reviewed by a qualified contractor, and life safety exceptions require dual written approval. Elise took notes. Ruth continued. The carrier will also require confirmation that no executive has unilateral authority to cancel mandated tests, alter life safety staging, or override an unresolved safety exception. Daniel's hand went still. Are you requiring a personnel change? The broker asked. I'm requiring a control change, Ruth said. How Calder House assigns personnel is Calder House's decision. After the meeting, Daniel left without Elise. His presentation remained on the table. Malik took the brass key and signed it back into the log. 957, he said. No visible damage. Emotionally. Key's devastated. Lena laughed, and the sound surprised her. Elise stood by the windows with both arms wrapped around herself. When the others had gone, she said, The lender will reduce the facility. How much? I don't know yet. Enough that we'll open 1 office instead of 3. I'm sorry. I know. Lena put the checklist back in her binder. Elise watched her. He asked me last night whether I was his wife or his CFO. What did you say? I asked why the truth required different answers. Lena waited. He's going to say you did this to us. Maybe I did. No. Elise's voice caught, then steadied. You gave him chances to tell the truth while it was still cheap. They stood within reach of each other, separated by the end of the long table. I should have stopped him at the depot, Elise said. Yes. I should have read the condition instead of trusting him to understand it. Yes. I hated you for making me see him clearly. Lena swallowed. I know. Elise nodded, accepting the lack of comfort as part of the answer. Daniel was removed from operational authority that afternoon. He remained vice president of client development during a 60-day handover, with every proposal subject to financial and operational review. The lender reduced the expansion facility, but kept the single-office plan alive after receiving the carrier's conditional renewal. At work, Daniel became impeccably professional. He copied Lena on every operational question and addressed her in meetings with a courtesy so exact it felt sharpened. At home, he and Elise stopped arriving together. By the end of his handover, he had moved into a furnished apartment near the Harbor Exchange. On his last day, he brought a banker's box to Lena's office. It was no longer the inventory room. Elise had moved her upstairs after the review, though the new room was narrow and faced the loading bays. "These are the Ashdown event files," he said. "Client preferences, contract history, the usual landmines." "Thank you." He placed the box on her desk. "You got what you wanted." Lena looked at him. "Not yet." His mouth lifted at one corner. "Still negotiating?" "Yes." "With your sister?" "With the company." "Be careful. They call you family when they want the discount." He walked out before she could decide whether it was a warning, an insult, or the closest thing he had to an apology. Lena negotiated for Director of Risk and Event Operations, written stop work authority for mandated safety conditions, and a policy requiring every executive override to retain its original record. Elise objected to the title, then the reporting line, then the salary. Lena held her ground on all three. They settled on the title, the salary, and a direct reporting line to the executive group, with Elise overseeing financial controls but unable to erase an operational hold alone. The agreement took 9 days and 2 dinners that went cold between them. Months later, the depot filled again with rolling cases, floral carts, and the smell of temporary kitchens warming for service. A new client's logo glowed across the media wall. At 4:41, Malik handed Lena the brass generator key. She clipped it to her red lanyard, cleared the elevators, shut down the planned load, and transferred the building to backup power. Every emergency fixture held. The kitchen stayed within limit. The media wall returned with its configuration intact. Malik signed the final reading. Lena marked the last box with her blue grease pencil. They were 12 minutes ahead of schedule. She returned the warm brass key to the red lanyard, closed her checklist, and opened the doors on time.